Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator of the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Monday morning's Makeover Monday. I like Makeover Monday. It gives us a chance to sort of like recalibrate ourselves if we weren't, living up to our best last week. We say sort of one day at a time, 1 week at a time. It's time to shake up the Etch-a-Sketch. And it's also a special holiday. It's an anniversary day for me and Kaustubha. Kaustubha got his second initiation. I got my first initiation in 1991 in Vrindavan. I got the name Raghunath. Kaustubha got his second initiation. And it's Lord Nityananda Trayodashi. Mm-hmm. Instead of getting into Lord Nityananda, Kaustubha, I think maybe we just talk about, maybe the importance of what initiation is.
Okay.
and you could just surprise. I like for surprising Kaustubha with things. But it was a special day in a beautiful wasn't that a beautiful setting?
Well, it was the courtyard of the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, which, obviously for you and I and for so many people there's so many memories associated with that place. But in my own heart, I feel like that courtyard, when you walk in there, it almost feels to me like almost like since that place has been established, that there's been so much bhakti practiced in that beautiful area that it is like stepping. I mean, in one sense, all of Vrindavan is the spiritual world, but particularly when you step into that temple, into that courtyard, there's just nothing like it for me. Yeah.
You know me, and I love going to Vrindavan and temple hopping to all the famous old temples of Vrindavan. But truthfully, there is nothing like that courtyard. And that's where we had our initiation. And it is magical. And I tell you, if there is like a supercharged place in this universe, that might just be the place right there. Because I've seen students walk in there and just like they break down. They just melt down, break down, laugh, giggle hysterically, cry profusely. It's out of this world. And you know what's really interesting about that courtyard is, and you might not know this, even if you've been there, because you step down into this giant marble, a sunken courtyard. Do you ever see that? I've never been there when they did it. Mara, have you ever seen pictures of this? They fill it with water.
I've been there for that.
You've been there for that?
Yeah.
And they take the deities on a little boat for a little boat ride.
Mm-hmm. With kirtan.
You can't make that up.
You don't have to. You can do it.
You can just do it. You can take your deities on a little boat ride. A special boat festival.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's the beauty of the place. It's the charm of that courtyard is just off the charts, and the deities of Radha and Krishna, the deities of Krishna and Balaram and of Gaur-Nitai there are exceptionally beautiful, and the worship there that they do every day is exceptionally beautiful, and the kirtan that takes place in that courtyard exceptionally beautiful. It's just like I said, there's nothing like it.
There's something we had a really nice show yesterday. If you didn't hear it yesterday, we interviewed Kaustubha with these prophet questions, and I got a lot of positive feedback from it yesterday. But one of I think a big question that we talked about was like the commitments and the promises that we make as devotees, and also then I gave a Budinsky, and I said, well, also there's the not just the promise, but it's the practice that goes before the promise. And we're sort of in this state. A lot of us are in this state where we're like practicing. Sadhana bhakti means we practice our spiritual life on a regular basis. We make some type of like commitments. Kaustubha spoke yesterday about the importance of being committed and making these, vows. So we have like a regular practice where we chant on malas every day, maybe 1 round a day, maybe 2 rounds a day. We try to read every day, or we try to listen every day to sacred literature or, wisdom literature every day. And when you make that a practice, just like anything, just like jujitsu or violin, when you make it a practice on a regular basis, a specific time every day, this is how much violin I practice every day. You start to get better at violin. You don't get better at violin by randomly practicing. You make an explicit goal. Every day, I'm going to practice this much, this many times a week. And then magically, you start getting better at things. And the same is true with our spiritual life. We're in a practice. Then you get to this point where you actually want to make a lifetime commitment. Then you make that promise. And maybe you want to talk about the nectar devotion and how it's recommended of initiation and what that's about. What was it about to you that made you want to get a name or an initiation? Or can you talk about maybe, Kaustubha, what it is like?
Well, it wasn't to get a name. That wasn't the reason.
Didn't you just want to get a name?
No, but getting that name is part of the samskaras. The idea is that a commitment's being made, and the commitment is 2 ways. The commitment is going from disciple to the guru, and the commitment is going from the guru to the disciple, and they've both examined each other, and confirmed or become convinced. The disciple is convinced that this guru, this is a person that truly embodies the teachings of Vyas, right? The teachings that have come down, that have been handed down in the Vedic literature. They understand them thoroughly. They can explain them to me thoroughly. They embody them thoroughly, and they inspire me to follow them thoroughly, right? And so after some examination, some knowing what a qualified guru is, and observing and hearing from the guru, that they feel inspired. I want to serve this person, right? I'm convinced that this person is, and it's not this person based on their own charisma. It's this person as a representative, right? Because this person, in the same way that I'm feeling inspired now, has also been inspired to serve their guru. It's a line of servants. It's not just one servant and one master, but it's a line of servants, right? And so this person is not saying that they're God, is not trying to direct worship and adoration and service toward themselves. They understand their role as a humble role, as a role like that their role is to connect one in this chain, right? And to hand these teachings down through the chain so that the disciple can benefit. So the disciple has become convinced that this guru truly represents this tradition, right? Truly represents this bhakti tradition, this bhakti lineage. And becomes convinced that I want to serve this person and hear from this person and allow, engage their instructions in such a way where I will become transformed and I will also become a worthy representative. And the guru is looking at the disciple and observing them and saying, this person is taking this seriously, right? This person is genuine. They're not just doing it for some, they're not getting involved in this tradition for some ulterior motive or some kind, some superficial motive.
Novelty.
Yeah. But they actually understand what this is. It's a process of completely dedicating one's heart, one's mind, one's body, one's words. I dedicate myself to the service of God. That's all I want. And they're recognizing they don't, the disciple doesn't have to be born in a certain family. The disciple doesn't have to be a certain sex or gender. The disciple doesn't have to be even, like super intelligent or learned or been educated in a particular way. Or none of those are the considerations. The consideration is their sincerity to actually serve God. And if the guru recognizes that, then together they make this commitment.
Now
That's
let's
the initiation ceremony.
Maybe you can also explain. Yesterday we were talking about marriage, the commitment of marriage, and I said, well, I was being facetious and saying, oh, it's just a piece of paper. And you're like, no, it's not a piece of paper. It's like formal vows you make in front of community and God. How can't I just be committed, or must you get a formal initiation, or what would you say about that? If someone brought that up.
So what the yoga tradition does is it engages something called samskara, right? Samskara means an impression that's made in the mind, right? It's like yoga philosophy teaches us that everything that's coming through our senses is leaving an impression in the mind, right? I walk down the street, I see a billboard, boom, there's an impression. It's recorded right in my mind. I hear a sound, boom, it leaves an impression. Some of these impressions, some of these samskaras are very influential in our life. They shape our lives. Some of them are less, at every moment things are coming through our senses. So some of them are more significant than others. But what the yoga tradition does is it engages that idea. It recognizes, okay, whatever's coming through our senses is shaping our mind. If we very intentionally take in certain sights, certain sounds, etc., we can shape our mind so that it begins to work for us rather than working against us. It begins to become our friend rather than serve as our enemy. And so that idea is employed in the rituals that are performed, or the rites, the rites of passage in life. So this is a very serious rite of passage. It's called the second birth, right? And so within that ceremony, there are practices there are elements to that ceremony that are meant to leave impressions in the mind, and that's called pancha samskara, 5 impressions, right? 5 mental impressions. One of them is tapa, which means to perform some austerity, and the aspect of that's involved in this ceremony is that the disciple takes vows. The guru asks the disciple to take vows, and the disciple voluntarily takes those vows. And those are vows of sense control, right? That I'll control my sense, as well as and then another samskar is a mantra that the guru who has been chanting. The guru has received this mantra from his guru, who's received it from his guru, going back in this chain. That mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is then handed from this guru to the next disciple. Again, recognizing that the person understands the seriousness of this commitment, that this name is non-different. It's we've been telling that story. We've referred to it a couple times in the past week or so, of Sanatana Goswami, who had this touchstone, right?
Right.
And
touchstone is like a magical stone. Whatever you wish for, it just comes true, or just comes to manifest.
And so one person heard he had this touchstone, and he went to Sanatana Goswami and he said, "I heard you got this touchstone." He says, "Yeah, it's over there in the garbage. You can have it if you want it. I don't want it." And so the guy was like, "All right, I'll take it," And then, but after he took it, he began to realize, well, hold it. If he has this touchstone, which can basically fulfill all kinds of desires, and he doesn't even seem to value it, well, he must have something of far greater value. What
He
is
has
it
something more he's not letting me in on. He's hiding something here. What else do you have?
What else do you have? So he went back and he inquired about that. You must have something more. And he said, well, I do have something more, but if you really want it. Now think about this in relation to the initiation ceremony that we're discussing, right? If you really want it, you have to take the touchstone and throw it away. In other words, you have to give up your material aspirations. Like
that's what like the whole material world is like. You can work on, you got to work hard on your material aspirations. You got to get focused on what you want in the material world. Here's a whole book of, really your goal setting of your material aspirations. We're saying don't refine your material aspirations, throw them in the river. You need spiritual aspirations.
Yeah. So in one sense, that's what, and so then he's, you know, you could imagine what it was like for this otherwise materialistic person saying, I've got to throw the touchstone away now to get, you know, it's like a risk, you know, okay, I'll
Right.
throw it away.
What was that
Yeah.
show? The Let's Make a Deal or something? I'll take what's behind the curtain.
Oh, right,
I'll give
right.
up this for what's behind the curtain.
That's right. So it's behind the curtain. Yeah, that holy name. But we must imagine that Sanatana's Goswami's character must have played a big role in this person having the confidence to throw the touchstone away, right? It's like when I'm, you know, just when
That's a good point. That's
you know,
a good point.
he whatever it was about his character instilled that faith that it's worth it to throw this touchstone away. So in one sense, that's what's happening here in the initiation ceremony. The guru is saying, I'm going to give you this mantra. This mantra, it has spiritual potency. But in order to access the spiritual potency, you have to understand what it is, and you have to make that the focus of your life. You know, and in order to do it, you got to throw away your touchstone. You got to throw away, and so 4 vows. You know, illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and eating meat. I want you to take all this. I want you to throw it in the river, right? And I want you to approach. Yeah, and I want you to. Yeah, and I want you to approach this mantra with that type of conviction that I'm not interested in anything, you know, in material gain. I'm not interested in enjoying life separate from God anymore. I'm interested in connecting to God. The mantra will have the potency to do that, but your ability to receive that potency will have to do starting with tapas. You're going to have to start to practice, you know, let go of some things and practice some austerity. Then there's also pondra. That's one of them that you begin to mark, like you're wearing this mark on your forehead right now.
Yes.
So the disciple would begin to mark their body, you know, regularly with this mark. That's a samskar. I identify, right? It's a way of identifying with a bhakti lineage, and also the name. You're given a name at that point, and a new name. It's a rebirth, and so
sometimes with our old name comes old baggage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's kind of like I want to be reborn, and with that comes a name, and that name is, you know, there's an appendage on that name, which is dasa for a male or dasi for a female, which indicates that I'm, you know, the name will be in some way connected to God, and the das or dasi identifies one as a servant of God. And so that's, you know, that's again a samskara, right? It's meant to leave an impression. From this day on, I'm reborn. I have a new name. My entire identity. I want to see it now not as separate from God, but as linked or connected to God. And so that, you know, these are, you know, what's happening in that ceremony. It is a commitment, and one's making that commitment generally before the deities of God, and we were doing it in the courtyard of that beautiful temple before Krishna Balaram and Radha Shyama and Gaurnitai, and before Guru and before all the other, you know, Bhakti yogis in their association.
All your friends, all your friends who are encouraging you, and you know, it's time. You know, people get down on rituals and they say, "Oh, this is just dumb rituals." I remember going to church and these dumb rituals. But the ritual with substance behind it really affects the mind in a deep way. And to this day, I reflect on those rituals, the fire, you know, the almost like the smell of the incense and the smell of the ghee and the smell of even the brand new cloth you're wearing. And even the feeling of shaving your head and the cold air and the fruit, the scent of the fruit and the scent of the flower garlands. It's a very ritual rich tradition. And with those rituals, they leave this impression of something sacred is happening with people that I respect, with friends that I respect, with a community I respect in front of a temple. And it leaves these big impressions when things aren't so rosy. Like that was probably a very rosy moment in our life. And then when things don't get so rosy, we reflect on those times when times are hard. And we say, this is why I made a commitment. There was some substance behind it. There was some reason behind it. And otherwise, rituals just become ritualistic. Whereas understanding the substance behind all these things, this is what carves these deep ruts within our mind. And they link us to truth and peace and stability. And you know, that's what we try to do when we take people to India too. We try to give them an experience where they're getting those samskaras of holy places. and holy situations. With my kids, we don't have a temple where we live right now, but for me, it's always been trying to give them a samskara. Like in India, this is the Ganga. This is a sacred place. We bow down to the Ganga. We bathe in the Ganga. This is the Artik ceremony. And you get the sensation. We are a very sensually rich culture where you're smelling, you're tasting the prasad, you're feeling the Ganga water, you're bowing down, and that becomes part of your being. And it reminds you of a place where things are calm and collected and peaceful and makes sense, because the rest of the world doesn't make sense often. The world goes south quick. And so we need to, we find that it's really healthy to recreate these again and again, so we always can come back to them.
Nice.
Well, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. You too. I remember, because it's this holiday, the appearance of Sri Nityananda, that temple, on all the holidays, it's so beautifully decorated, right? Like flowers are so abundant in Vrindavan. It's just like crazy.
I know.
So it was just like, just completely, it just everywhere you look, it's just like long strings of beautiful fragrant flowers and roses and
for most
marigolds.
People have never seen that many flowers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not in the West. They're so expensive. They have no fragrance. There, it's like they're totally inexpensive, and they're full of fragrance. And so the whole place was, and the altars were incredibly decorated. And one memory, I think I've shared it on the show before, but one memory I have, so we were initiated. I was second initiated. So right after that ceremony, we went back to the house that my guru used to stay in nearby there. And, his bedroom that he stayed in was like, it was basically big enough for just a cot and just like hardly any other room in there. It was like, it was a very tiny room.
Right.
And I remember sitting in that room and him giving me the Gayatri mantra. And then after that, we all went to the Yamuna and we all bathed together. Remember?
Oh, yep. Remember.
I also,
I think we got a picture of it somewhere.
Yeah.
Serious. I think I got a picture of you bathing.
You got to show me that.
I had some big old boxy camera.
Yeah. And I remember some of these just memories that I have of that day, just random memories, was I remember then when we got out of the Yamuna. And so then we're going to put the tilak back on, which is, again, it's this kind of soft clay that you put a little water in your palm, and then you rub a stick of that dried clay into your palm, and it makes it, fresh clay. And then you would apply that to your body, to your forehead. You make this mark. And I remember, usually you need a mirror there and, to do it well. And I remember without a mirror, my guru just went there and he just put it on. It was like perfect, And I don't know if it was you or someone said, how did you do that? He just said, I've been doing this for a long time. But I remember that. But also what I remember was, so that evening, there was the Sandhya Arti, a kirtan as the sun is setting. In the back in the temple. Now we're back in the temple. There's been a huge feast at this point, right? Because they always have these beautiful big feasts, they're delicious, so incredible, incredible food. And then the evening we were there for that kirtan, and the altars, because it was that holiday, they were just completely laden with flowers and fruits, right? So there are tons of fruits like decorating the altar. And I remember during the kirtan, everyone's dancing. And the pujaris, they started taking it, because it's the end of the day, and soon they're going to close the curtains, and that'll be it. So they started to throw all the fruit to people in the audience, and people were catching it. And I remember they threw like a mango or something, and you caught it. And I was standing kind of off to the side with my guru and Giriraj Swami, and you had caught that mango or something like that. And then you started dancing, like you started jumping in the air, like I got it, like you had just received Krishna Prema or something like that. And you were running and dancing with.
I think I did just receive it.
And I just remember my guru and Guru Raj Swami just smiling, watching you jump up and down like that. So I always remember that. Too.
It's those moments of like dancing without, or doing anything, where either if it's kirtan, where you're just like in it. With no like pretense, you're just joyful. You're not putting on a show of dancing. It's not like I'm a trained dancer, but there's something it's an expression of the heart. And I tell you, it seems like spirituality must have dancing in it to assist you in transcendence. It must have music and it must have dancing. They're so otherworldly. They're not material things. You can even feel like they must be coming from some, especially when you're dancing or singing, not to put on a performance, but just out of the joy from your heart. And we have these perverse, perverted reflections of them in the material world. Like, someone's on stage and they, take off their shirt and they throw it out in the audience. You're like, yeah, I got the guy from Rolling Stone's shirt, but it's not that. It's like the
guitar
priest
pick.
the guitar pick. The priest is throwing out fruit that has been offered, and people are diving for it and feeling great joy for a mango. Come on. And it's like, but you feel like this is the most valuable thing in the world. This was offered to the deities, and it's such a beautiful culture like that.
It's a beautiful culture. Yeah, that's maybe that's the point, is that you call it a culture, right? Because it's culturing something, right?
Ooh, I like that.
It's meant
culturing something.
It's culturing something. So in other words, like a yogurt culture, it transforms milk from one thing into another thing, right? So culture is meant to transform us from one place to another place. And this whole bhakti culture, it's not just like random customs that have developed, but it's like these great saints and yogis, they very carefully orchestrate the culture, so that it cultures the best, right? So that the prema, pure love, that is our nature, that is covered now by a warped mind, full of all kinds of impressions, and a material body moving through a material world. The idea is that through this culture, through not just music, but a particular type of music, and say take just one element, music. It's what's the lyrics, what they're expressing. That's an important part. But even the music itself was designed in such a way where it's most favorable. The different ragas that are used and so on, so that it's most favorable to create the right feeling, that sinks into the mind and the heart.
It's like these masters understood how to engage the civilians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's this other story I've told many times. I won't get into the details, but I basically tried to get back to the United States, and they wouldn't let me on the plane, and I had like $1 left. I'm not going to tell that whole story, but it's one of my darker times. But I had $1 left, and I had no credit cards, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And they were going to charge me $100 to change my ticket, and the next plane out was not leaving for like a week, because back then the planes didn't leave every day. And so I was like, I had no idea what to do, and I ended up just taking like a bus for like 25 cents to the Delhi temple. And it was one of those classic moments in Bhakti where you're just like, Krishna, I have no idea what's going to go on. I trust you that it'll work out. And I ended up at the New Delhi temple in Gurgaon. And it was the day of the Rath Yatra, the next morning. Right. And the Rath Yatra is the massive ritual cart festival where the deities are on this cart. And they're saying, okay, and I don't know anything about anything practically. And they're like, okay, we need some people to help decorate the cart. You got to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. We're decorating the cart with flowers, and people are loading fruit on top of the cart. And unlike the New York Rath Yatra, which is sort of like it's incredible, but it's sort of like, a Hare Krishna spectacle where like the devotees of the Bhakta devotees take over New York City, go down Fifth Avenue, and everyone's just like, what the heck? All right, this is New York. I can take that. In India, it's like people are losing their mind. They're like, the Lord of the universe is here, and their cart is there. And so they started pulling the cart while I was still on top of the cart. And I was like, what's going on? I'm going to be on the cart. And so I ended up getting to be on this cart the entire time. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to throw out. And the priest started, and I was like a new guy, the priest started saying, okay, now start throwing the fruit at everybody. I was like, all right, I'm just throwing the bananas off the side of the cart. And people are losing their mind. A banana of Lord Jagannath. Oh, a peach of Lord Jagannath. A mango. And you see their intense love coming. And it was all in these rituals, like this is prasad. This was offered with love to the deity, and I'm eating the remnants of the deity. And all these rituals and all this culture, as you were explaining, is meant to fester, is that the word? Or cultivate Mara always gives me these looks. Fester. No, cultivate bhakti within the heart of like the civilians, the people who are, maybe we don't have so much bhakti. Maybe we're just sort of like, we're new to it. We're sort of like dipping our toe in the water, or we're absorbed the material, like, and then all of a sudden the masters come up. We have these festivals, and these festivals connect with us. That was a great time.
You know,
we did it last night. We had a little festival here. Tiny little festival.
Okay, but the point is the mood, right? It's like, because you were invested with that culture at 30-something years ago in your life. What, 31 years ago?
31 years.
Right. So now it's in you, you know, and because you've kept that spark alive, you know, you kept fanning that spark, that no matter where you are in the world, even if there is no facility for it, you create your facility and you do it. And it doesn't even need to be that, you know, it may be even in your quiet little festival, you experience something just as profound now, you know. It's not necessary, but the point is that the samskaras, the impressions are made, you know, you open yourself up to have those impressions made, and they're long lasting. Everything that you're saying is making me realize, Raghunath, we really need to make sure that we start having Wisdom of the Sages retreats to Vrindavan and bringing people there, because we got to share this, right? You got to. Yeah,
let's maybe make like a regular, even in the States, we do something that there is ritual involved, and
no question, but there's nothing like it there too, right? It's like to
super special, super special
in that context.
Now our gears are thinking of all these things. By the way, that was. You know how the festival goes on for a few hours in New York City, the Rath Yatra Festival?
The Rath Yatra, yeah.
This thing was like 8 to 10 hours. I was on that cart. I was like, all right, when's this thing going to end? I was on that cart all day long.
Right. Yeah, they're long, right?
And it never gets old. I mean, people are losing their mind the entire time, and you can't get help, like get swept up in the love of the people. The people in India, it's such a pious place. When they see that cart coming down the road, they're throwing coins at the cart, money at the cart, fruit at the cart. Shopkeepers are coming out and just hauling things at the cart. Yeah. I'm catching it and offering it.
You know, it's like what we're saying, right? This is just another aspect of the culture that that you know, you just in India, even though it's such a mess now, and even though it's so influenced by Western internet and, you know, Bollywood films being influenced by Hollywood, you know, even though it's like so much has been done to cover the bhakti culture, it's actually just right under the surface.
It's right under the surface. Yeah, it's something deeply woven into that culture. It's hard to make it go away. The Portuguese tried it, the British tried it, the Mughals tried it, the Afghans tried it. Yeah, it doesn't go away. It's deeply rooted in their DNA, their bloodlines.
And even a person will seem like a completely, where you're dealing with like an Indian person that like they're trying to dress like a Westerner and they're trying to act like a Westerner. They can't pull it off. It looks silly. They just seem like a joke. But then you get right under it and you find it's right there. You know, it's right there. And so that culture was designed, you know, like what you're describing, to some people it's going to sound, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like these people are so caught up in their religion and so on, and they're just acting, you know, this cart gets pulled down the street. It has their quote unquote God on it, and they're getting all excited over nothing. Actually, people are getting excited one way or another. It's just a question of where that excitement's going. Now, you I think maybe like in the Western world, like maybe the most obvious example of something like this is take like Beatlemania, right? It's just like, you know, like the Beatles, they're just playing this pretty simple songs, right? Especially when they first came, right? I Want to Hold Your Hand, you know, it's like, it's not like a masterpiece or anything like that, you know, it's not like,
it's not Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, but they're playing the simple song and they're cute and they're singing their song, but there's something about that music that's captured everybody and something about their style that's captured everybody, and they just start to freak out, right? And what they're feeling is it's prema warped, right? It's like love of God in a warped sense, misdirected. But the fact, like, you know, you take those girls, right, and they're screaming, they're crying.
They're crying.
It's Paul, it's John, it's George.
Elvis.
Yeah. So, but in their heart, something is going on. Like something, their heart is really being moved, and tears are pouring from their eyes. They're screaming. We're meant to feel like that.
Right.
That kind of love, quote unquote love. That's a misdirected. It's a love that it's very limited. It's a love that it's going towards a particular person, not necessarily for the what they're seeing as a reflection of Krishna's qualities in these people, right? They're beautiful. They make beautiful music. They got such style. That's all Krishna's beauty, Krishna's style, in a very limited package, and they're feeling it for that. But Krishna has that unlimitedly. The whatever opulence the Beatles had was just a spark of Krishna's splendor. And when our love is misdirected like that to the reflection rather than to the source, ultimately it's dissatisfying. Ultimately it doesn't fulfill one. Or those girls that were crying and screaming and feeling that ecstasy, 10 minutes later, or what to speak of decades later, it hasn't brought them to the place of Atma Supersidity. It hasn't brought them to the place of complete satisfaction of the soul. What these great yogis recognized was, go to the source of that splendor, right? Which is the form of Sri Krishna, and dedicate your mind there. Bring in samskaras that are gonna make you feel the same way those girls felt for the Beatles, right? In a sense, feel that same kind of excitement for the source of our very being, for the what do they call it? Like when water's coming out of the ground, like the spring well, right? The
spring head.
For the spring head or
spring
spring
source.
well. Yeah, spring whatever. Or the geyser.
Geyser?
But for the source of it all in Sri Krishna. And then build your culture around that. Right? Build your culture so that when Krishna's car, if the Beatles were sitting in a car, just like we also have these warped reflections, like the Super Bowl was yesterday, right? And so I imagine they'll have a parade for the winning team in their city, and and then they sit, they get on vehicles and they drive them through the city, and everybody's cheering for them and feeling some kind of special affection for them.
Sure.
Well, that's a perverted, it's a warped reflection of the Rath Yatra, which is Krishna is being pulled through the town.
Right. Because if you actually analyze the character of those people you're worshiping, they could be really creepy. We don't even know what's going in the heads of those people. And we're worshiping the mundane roles and goals and heroes.
Right. So here's my point. So here's my, you got some lyrics? Okay, but just.
Well, that was the Shelter lyric. Wasting our time worshiping mundane roles and goals and heroes. And although life really has a purpose, I wasted my time in a social circus. Yes.
Gotcha. So if a skeptic were to look at the Rath Yatra ceremony that you were part of in Delhi and say, this is absurd. These people, they're hopelessly lost in some kind of religious illusion. But meanwhile, you're taking part in, the parade for the Los Angeles Rams winning the Super Bowl. And you're seeing that as like, sensible in any way, then you're really lost. It's like
it's the same
you're the
thing
one.
In a perverse way. We did have a Super Bowl party here right after Nityananda's appearance party.
Well, that's because the Rams won it, right? The Rams won it.
But I just wanted to share one other funny thing. It's so deeply woven oftentimes in Indians' culture that even though they might get completely absorbed in mundane life, we had this one time where me and Paramananda were on tour with Shelter, and sometimes these families own hotels. Indian families own motels, and you and I have stayed at them. They're Gujarati families, moved to America, start a simple business of, the little hotel ornament. So we checked into a hotel like 2 a.m. after a show, and we had to leave first thing in the morning, but we had no sleep. So it was after 11. And everybody's still sleeping in the hotel room. And I had waken up early, I'd taken a bath, and I had my dhoti on, and I had tilak on, and I had my altar set up. And I had walked outside, picked some flowers. No one saw me. And I'm doing this puja, but it's after 11 now. So checkout's at 11. So there's this Indian man just banging on the door. Time to wake up. Time to get out. Get out of the hotel. I was like, and everyone's still sleeping. And I'm in the middle of my puja. And I'm saying, 1 second, sir, 1 moment, please. And I'm trying to ring the bell and offer prayers. And he's banging on the door. Wake up, it's 11 o'clock, it's checkout time. And I'm saying, 1 second, I'll be there in a second. And finally, he would not stop yelling. And I have like no shirt on. I have my Brahmin thread. I'm covered with tilak. And I'm holding incense and a silver bell. And I open the door. I was like, what is the matter with you? And then it's like every Indian's like biggest fear. A Brahmin is angry at him. Right. And he looks up and down at me and he says, I am so sorry. I am also a Brahmin. Please forgive me. And that's all. He just walked away.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me. I'm a Brahmin also. And then he came back as we were driving away. And I said, well, it's no problem. I'll be done in 1 moment. And then as we were driving away, he came up and he gave me a flower garland and a picture of Ganesh.
He was convinced. He wanted you to feel, he didn't want you in your heart in any way to feel any animosity towards him. He felt it would be very inauspicious.
Incredibly sweet.
You know, it's a great story that also describes how this culture is just right under the surface, Raghunath. Maybe we can end with this. It's your story about that person you met.
We did the whole show. It's 6:53.
I know. So there's this person that you met in a gas station in New Jersey.
Oh man, this is the best story ever.
It's such a great story. Things like this only happen to you. Let's hear this story.
Okay. So I was running on, you ever drive your car and it says like 20 miles to, 100 miles till empty. For some reason, I say there's two types of people in this world. Those who have never, ever in their life ran out of gas. I think you fall into that category. Probably close to that. And those who have many times in their life run out of gas. I have many times in my life run out of gas.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
And so I'm driving down Interstate 17 in New Jersey, which is like a major highway, like a 4-lane highway. And it says 000 miles till empty. I was like, oh my God, I'm like running. And so I very quickly veer off and there's an Exxon station right there. So I luckily just get in the Exxon station and it's this Indian man. And I always like to talk to Indians because Indians generally, they're somehow still connected. Somehow they're connected with Krishna.
I think New Jersey, the law is they still have like, you don't pump your own gas.
They pump for you.
Yeah.
So this one guy came and I could tell he was Hindu. His name was what is his name? Babu. And he started pumping gas. And I was like, okay, I need to spark up a conversation with him. So as he's pumping gas, I went to pay him and I pulled $100 bill out and I ripped it by mistake because I pulled it out quickly. And he goes, no problem. I will just tape. And I said, oh, well, in India, if you rip $100 or 100 rupees, it's no good. They won't accept it. He says, yes. How do you know about India? I was like, well, I'm a yoga teacher. I go to India a lot. I just got back from India. And he was like, really? Where do you go? And we started talking and I sort of got out of the car. He's holding the gas pump. And I was like, well, I was just in this place called Haridwar. And I said, Haridwar means it's the gateway to Lord Hari. It's like the doorway to Hari, or Hardwar is the gateway to Har or Lord Shiva. And it's the gateway to the Himalayas, which is considered a celestial world. And he says, yes, I'm knowing. I have been, my mother has taken me there when I was a young boy. Where else did you go? And I was like, well, before that I was in Dev Prayag. Oh, I'm knowing Dev Prayag. That's the Sangam. That's where the two rivers come together and we bathe there. I was like, yeah. And he was getting really excited. And then I started saying, and then I went to Vrindavan. He goes, Vrindavan is my favorite place. And I said, when I go to Vrindavan, we all get out of the vehicle. And no matter what we're wearing, we roll in the dust because this is the dust that Krishna and Balaram would walk on. Their feet are walking on the sand. And he's like, yes, Krishna and Balaram walk there. And then he stopped me and he goes, have you ever been to Govardhan? I was like, Govardhan? Govardhan's my favorite place in the universe. I goes, that was the last place we did. And we go to Govardhan, we take off our shoes and we walk 21 kilometers around Govardhan. And I buy a bunch of sweets at the sweet shop. I offer them to Govardhan and then I distribute the sweets. And I tell you, we were standing face to face on the side of the freeway. He's holding a gas pump. And then very quickly, he points past my head and he says, "Look over there," like behind me. And he sort of said it in like a very like scary way, like, "Look over there." And I quickly turned around and there was nothing. I'm on the side of the highway. There's nothing behind me. And I was like, "That's weird." And I turned around and he is no longer there. What? He has disappeared. He was just standing right in front of me. And I was like, "Oh, this is weird. This is really weird." I'm looking around the gas station. I'm looking inside the gas. How did he get out of here? He was still holding a pump. And then I looked down and Babu is doing full I kid you not, I'm not making this up. Full prostrated obeisances, holding the gas pump, bowing down, and then gripping my feet. And he's saying, "Raghunath, I don't know what I have done to end up here in New Jersey, but I want to go on pilgrimage with you."
We gotta go find Babu.
You know what? I've seen him many times since then. I always go to that gas station.
Get out.
But then he moved. He's got a new gas. I've got so many stories of me going back to him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He would sometimes come and he'd go, "Raghunath," and he'd open my car door, throw my change on the floor of the car. Like he's handing me change, throw on the floor, and then he'd go, "Excuse me," and he'd go down and he'd put his head on my feet.
Get out.
He was such a character, this Babu.
Oh, we gotta go meet him. But that's again, that's just showing like, again, I'm going back to Beatlemania, but just to have like a piece of their shirt or something like that, like girls are like ripping at them, I want his hair, I want anything, and like they worship that, like, "Oh, I got his hair," that kind of, enthusiasm, you can see that it's right under the surface with a guy like Babu, and it seems crazy, but actually it's the same enthusiasm, but just focused in the right place, and it's real bliss,
And it was just from his parents taking him to having him have that experience. It's lasted in his consciousness this long. It's amazing. This is why it's important for all of us to get those samskaras of holy places, hearing sacred literature, smelling the incense, eating the prasad. It starts to transform us and anchor us to a time of peace, connection, and spiritual life. Woo! What a fun show. We didn't even read the Bhagavatam today. I apologize.
It was all
I offended anybody in not getting there.
Oh, Babu. I don't know if we even do that today.
Hey, takeaways, Mara? Did you even do that today?
I did. We have some takeaways. It's not just the promise, but it's the practice.
Mm-hmm. Booyah.
Explicit daily practices improve our spiritual life.
Booyah.
Sincere desire for service to God is our qualification.
Mm-hmm.
Booyah.
Throw out your material aspirations to connect with divinity.
Okay. Yes.
Throw it in the river.
Touchstone. Throw it in the river.
Yeah, throw it in the river. Rituals with substance link us to samskaras of truth, peace, and stability.
Okay.
Kind of long. Bhakti culture is meant to transform our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Redirect your love and excitement to the source.
There you go.
And go to the source of the splendor.
Go to the what?
The source of the splendor.
The source of the splendor. That's beautiful. I have to check out. I have to drive the kids to school today. So I'm going to say goodbye now.
You can't just check out like that.
I'm checking out.
You can't check out.
The spiritual realm.
You can't just check out on it.
You got to.
Normally,
you can observe.
We can't get rid
dancing.
of you lately. We can't. Normally, we haven't been able to get rid of you. Maybe. How about this peacock throne?
Peacock throne. Don't get me going. I've been doing some research, by the way. Anyway, thanks for everybody joining us. If you want to join us on Zoom, you write to Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Check it out. And if you got questions for question and answer day, that's Saturday, write them into Mara. She keeps them in a file. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks to all the Patreon members who keep this boat floating down the Yamuna. And this is it. This is what we do every morning. Check in with your wisdom of the sages. Daily dose of spiritual wisdom, giving substance to our yoga practice, and most of all, just our life, giving substance to our life. Grateful for everybody here. You buoy me. You make me whole. You make me complete.
Mini me, you complete me.